Sanibonani, Dumelanga Busheng Ninjani. My name is Umpumelelo Kamshengu Shabala Lukaku Dongala Mavusu Mavusa Mhlope Officer and Akuba Kena. Today I just want to speak about the former COO, which is the Chief Operations Officer of SABC, which is the South African Broadcasting Channel. This COO is one of the most known politicians slash former SABC workers, and someone who is a champion of change, especially for black people in South Africa. And this person is Hlaudi Motsoeneng. Hlaudi was the chief operations officer for SABC, which is a state-owned channel in South Africa. He was in that position from the year 2011 up until 2013. So yeah, this guy is the one who came up with the 90% local content policy for SABC. So basically that means whatever you are watching on SABC, he said he wants everything to be 90% local. So akasiboni isidingo to watch Days of Our Lives. When it comes to music, there's no reason to watch or Beyonce, and rather giving that money and exposure to American and overseas artists. Rather, let's keep it local. And to substantiate his decisions, his was always like, even when it comes to the viewers of SABC, where do they really get the most views, on what contents do they get these most views? He substantiated that usually local telenovels, local music and stuff made more views in the SADC region, since SABC is not only circumferenced in South Africa, but rather mostly in the SADC region. And he emphasized that either way, people in the SADC region are more interested in local content. So these were some of his motivations. And in doing so, this was going to create more employment, more exposure for South African artists. And yeah, that became a challenge since some do not want to see South Africans, especially black South Africans, growing, developing, whether it's in the economic sphere or even in the employment sphere, because it's also part of the economy. So these were some of the challenges, and by doing that, introducing the 90% local content, he touched something he shouldn't have touched. So I remember at SABC, we had to beg to even watch the Rugby World Cup final at some point where South Africa was playing. We have to watch Bundesliga, which is German league, which I don't understand. Why is it first preference over the PSL? We do not watch for NFD, which is the National First Division. We don't have access to South African sports on our own state-owned channel. So I still am puzzled up until this day, why would anyone challenge this guy for this? And when it comes to the policies of SABC and what he did for employers and what actually employers are saying right now, for instance, SABC used to hire its employers for 12 months contracts. At most, they will give you 12 months contracts. So you could imagine that Sibuga or Grootboom for more than a decade, telling us in Daba on TV, only to find out that person is always employed in a 12 months contract. So if you don't understand a lot of constraint that does to you as Mudumdal, as someone who has a family, as someone who has children, as someone who's an adult, for instance, it becomes difficult to buy a house, for example. It becomes difficult to buy property, whether it's for rentals and so on. It becomes difficult to get finances from the bank because you're on a 12-month contract. No one knows what's going to happen in the next 24 months. It becomes difficult to get finance for cars because cars, you have to pay them over 5 years. So all those things are some of the things Hlaudi came in and tackled. When he got as this Kundla Sobo CEO, he implemented that people must get 3 years, 5 years contracts, and people were happy, employers were happy. Whenever they did great, there was more bonuses and so on. He would give them money. When there was he would call it sweetness, and he would give them money for performing on their jobs, and obviously SABC making a lot of money. And another thing, when he got in the position in 2011, SABC was about to retrench a lot of workers, and he gathered money and obviously stopped that. And also, when you look at the financial side of SABC, he tells you, this is how much I got. I'll get the exact figures and just put it here. He said, when I got at SABC, this was the financial balance of SABC. This is how much I got, and this is how much I left with SABC. So even when he was within SABC, he left SABC with a lot of money. But you know what we see on the media, they say he ate all the money and all those nonsense and stuff. But the reason why I'm talking about this guy, and the reason they said it's because he doesn't have matric, we are speaking here about someone who worked for All SADFM in 1995, and his first permanent contracts under SABC was also around 1995, early 90s. Already about 1994, he was doing prominent interviews. He was someone who was growing and developing as a journalist under the SABC. And for even his first contract or mini contract, he got them while he was still doing school. And it was SABC who took him out of school to give him those first jobs and so on. So it kind of puzzling that go 2011, you are told the guy doesn't have matric, as if SABC didn't know, because they took him out of the school from a young age. And it's just depressing when you come to think of whenever you find someone, a leader who's there for African people, who's there for black people, and to try and support us, these people, the other people, will come and attack that person with everything they got and even lie to our faces. And for another thing, when you look at these old bosses in these companies, be it even private companies, when you look at our own parents, for example, our maluma, our fathers and so on, in South Africa, you are bound to find even people working go Eskom, Transnet, RPM with no matric, because they got employment in the early 80s, 70s, late 90s, when the education requirements wasn't as high as today. So it's a norm, to be honest, to find someone or these people working with us matric who have worked for more than 25, 30 years, because at the time they didn't require matric to get in those sectors. So these are just some of the things I'm trying to highlight and show us that this guy was actually something best that could happen to us for SABC. Today, he got fired, obviously. They're charging him. They said he paid himself money. I would love to put it like that, because the whole argument of him having to pay back the money, which he didn't give himself, because, I mean, he's just a chief operations officer. So there are his bosses who are paying him more money, not paying more, who are taking the decisions to give him more money and so on. But then, yeah, I'm just trying to talk about this guy. I'm just trying to emphasize when we had a diamond in the sector, when we had a diamond in the broadcasting area, especially for South Africans, especially for black South Africans, we let him down. Like we always let other black leaders who are pro-black, who are pro-Africanism down. We let this guy down, to be honest. And we failed. And as a result, SABC ended up retrenching a lot of black people, a lot of South Africans, to be specific. As a result, SABC is not doing so great. SABC doesn't have policies that are more inclusive in the interest of South Africans. There's a lot negatives we can say about SABC. But then I just want to tell people, when you let that guy, when you listen to anything, those news, other channels saying everything about Hlaudi, they're just brainwashing you. You let the best thing that could happen to South Africans go under SABC. So yeah, please stay tuned, like, comments if you want to say anything, if you this is just my experience and my observation and my research obviously, but I'm welcome to having discussions about such topics. Topics of interest, topics that should touch the youth of this country, and topics that should help us develop. So do comment, do say something, do like, spread the word. Let us hear what other people are saying. But you lost a diamond in that guy.